Hi, and welcome to Hot Off the Press, show about new releases and the authors that bring them to you. I will be your host this evening, Jim Nettles. And before we get started, we're going to go work our way around the room and let everybody introduce themselves. So, Nicole, we're going to let you go first as the first-time guest and the first-time winner.
Okay, thanks. I'm Nicole Conway. I write teen and some upper middle grade fantasy, urban fantasy, a little bit of dark fantasy romance for the older teens. And yeah, it's fun to be here.
Nancy?
Hello, I'm Nancy Knight, and I published my first fiction that I got paid for in 1983, before some of you were even born. And I have written romance and historical romance and romantic suspense and fantasy. So, and I write plays and also screenplays. So I just kind of play in a lot of playgrounds.
Let the words flow.
Yes, absolutely.
Berta?
My name is Berta Platas, and I write romance, and I also write fantasy, and I write young adult fantasy. I'm 7 books into a series that I co-wrote with Michelle Roper under the pseudonym Jillian Summers, which is set in Renaissance fairs by a girl who's an elf. And it has really heavy environmental issues in it too. So that's fun to write. And now I am writing with Nancy. So we'll talk more about our book later.
And Becke?
Hello, I'm Becke Turner, and I write small town romance. My characters typically are trying to find or build a home, and I set it in a fictitious town in Sunbury, North Carolina.
So let's talk a little bit about these new releases. So Nicole, I'm going to go to you first. Why don't you tell us about the new release?
Well, I have a copy of it. So this is the 3rd book in my Mad Magic series that just came out today, was release day. I have the other ones here. There's book 2 and book 1. Book 1 is I think it came out, gosh. Ooh, let me check because it's been a while. I wrote this book. That was like the 2nd book I had ever finished. And so, but the Mad Magic series is my dark romance, dark fantasy romance. It's like Supernatural meets A Court of Thorns and Roses, with the dark, enigmatic fairy princes. But there's a lot of gunslinging with magic revolvers and hunting down fairy magical monsters, and weaves a lot of international folklore, which is kind of a passion. So yeah.
So what kind of folklore are you pulling in?
So let's see. The first, well, so you want series as a whole, or you want me to go book by book?
Make it light on yourself.
So of course there's strong the Celtic, Irish, the traditional, what you would think of with folklore, but I also pulled some from some Japanese folklore, a touch from, I did a lot of Eastern European folklore in this last one because there was a heavy Transylvanian influence with one of the main characters being the son of the bogeyman, aka Dracula. The premise of the series is that these fairy beings have been in the human world, and depending on how they present themselves and how human cultures throughout history have responded to them, some places regard them as demons or as mischievous spirits or as angels or as monsters or as gods, but it's all different aspects then of the same figure. So you would have this figure of Dracula. He's actually named Erebos, but he is the bogeyman. He has been regarded as like this dark but mischievous presence, and he is one of the fairy lords. Like he presides over the night circle, and there's figures like that throughout each book. But this book in particular deals with his son, who's the Prince of Nightmares, which is the one that all the ladies are like, oh, because he's the broody bad boy, dark prince guy. And they're specifically, though, they are a Barghest, which is like a hound, which is part of the reason why they get affiliated with a lot of the different aspects of like wolfish type things. So it pulls in a lot of threads of different folklores and sort of weaves them all together, so that these figures are, I don't know.
A nice traditional light, happy romance.
No, you know, yeah. Well, I mean, it starts out great. It starts out very traditional. But then Spriggans burned the high school down and she's having to kill Fear-Dadig. And the bogeyman's son lives in her apartment. But it was a story I originally wrote kind of as I was obsessed with supernatural, but I wanted to do something with folklore instead, because I've done a lot of mythology, specifically Greek and Latin mythologies, and I wanted to weave that in place of demon hunting and that sort of thing. I also was super into the X-Files, so
you're in the right place.
Yeah. Oh, I love the classic X-Files, and so I wanted that, like, let's figure out what fairy monster is up to no good, and then it turned into, oh no, it's actually this really powerful ancient fairy guy, how, you know. And so I did pull in a lot of more of the, I got sort of more into the Eastern European. It began with The Witcher, which is, you know, they derive a lot of the monsters from his books from that Eastern European, and that was an area I had never studied before. So I started digging a little bit more into that, and boy, it's dark, but it's a bit delicious. I love the dark, gruesome monsters there that you don't normally see represented in fiction.
Yeah, there's a lot of fun to be had there, and you're definitely sitting in the right place. So Nancy, what have you guys been cooking up?
Well, I was working on a book that I had started during NaNoWriMo last year, and Berta and I were talking about it, and she said, oh, I found this great cover. It'd be perfect for your book. And so she sent me a text of it, and I said, no, it won't work because of this. And I said, but it would really work well for something like this. And we kind of bounced back and forth. No, maybe this, maybe this, maybe this, maybe that. And finally, Berta said, we got to write this book. So let me
bounce the idea so much we wrote the book.
Yeah, we wrote a book to go with this cover. So you can't see it very well, and it's spelled backwards. I turn it that way, you can see it better, right?
No, it's spelled.
It's fine.
Spelled correctly.
It's just mirroring on your end.
Yeah,
you're good.
Yeah. So the book is called Cursed, and we worked on this, like we've worked on it for like 3 months. And go ahead, Berta. Tell them what happened today.
We finished it today. It was supposed to be published before Halloween. That did not happen. We kept finding more delicious things to put into it, and so we kept adding more things, which of course then you have to edit. So it got a little longer and longer. Then we said it was going to be a standalone, and then we said, but wait, it's going to end with, oh my God, that's another book. Well, we got like 4 books in the works now, and some novellas and some short stories to fill it in.
We have a career off. We have a career off of one picture, it seems like, for the next few years.
You find a book cover, and the next thing y'all are getting into trouble. So,
that's right.
That's what happened. It's never happened to me before. That's for
so
sure.
with such a cheerful name like Cursed, what's the story about? Story?
I gotta tell you, the problem with doing swag for a book called Cursed, if you do a little notebook, it's a cursed notebook. So everything you jot on it is cursed. And if you give away a pen, it's a cursed pen. Who wants to write with a cursed pen? It was a dilemma. We figured it out. It's about a lost princess and a terrible curse after a terrible battle that kills all of the dragons in a kingdom, except for the lost princess, who still has that mojo, and the woman who raises her. And after 3 centuries, the dragons return. Did I give away the end of the book?
Well, look at you. There you go. Now all I have to read is the first page and the last page, and I got it right.
That's right. But there's a lot of great stuff in the middle.
Yeah, that's right. We do. We do.
You just have to know how it's going to set up everybody, because again, y'all just started like a, 7-book series, some novellas. Do you have the covers for the rest of those yet?
Some of them, yes. Not going to show them. Yes, we do.
So what about you, Becky? What's the new romance?
Oh, well, I'm sitting here looking at all these dragons and stuff. I'm thinking, well, mine's kind of tame. Mine is Murphy's Cinderella. Let's see, this way, I guess. And this is another one of my Murphy Men. And actually, I just released a collection too, which is the Murphy Men collection. And in my Clock Tower series, there are, it's usually connected by the setting, but there are this one family that in it is runs through this thread. But this one's kind of tame, and I pulled off of my oncology experience, but I didn't want to make it too dark. The social issue on it is making it when you make the decision. When is it time to make that decision? And I wanted to make this a little bit more light and fun. And so this is an oncology nurse and an oncologist, and she's teaching him bedside manners. So that makes it a little lighter when you're bringing in this subject. And so I had a lot of fun with this book, but it's, like I said, it's also into that social issue about making those decisions.
All these are so nice and light and cheerful this evening for a good holiday shopping season.
Tis the season.
Tis the season.
Well, actually, Cursed, even though it has the title Cursed, it is very light. Is very light in places and very humorous in places. So maybe mine and Berta's is the lightest of all of them that we've heard about this evening. So, who knows?
Well,
this would work. This would work for a kid, for a girl, probably 12, 13, 14, 15. Anybody could read this. No F-bombs in there.
No.
So let's talk a little bit about this. And you've already talked a little bit about the inspiration for where it came from and the cover and the image that started it for you guys. So Nancy and Berta, what was the thing that clinched finally the story that you were going to go along? What was that thing that you looked at and you said, okay, this is how the story is going to work? So what was that final inspiration that said, this is our story?
We brainstorm all the time, and we thought up and dismissed umpteen ideas. I mean, we were going to go dark fantasy. Nancy's first premise was, this is the war to end all wars. It kills everything. It's this curse that is unleashed, and it's terrible. And I said, you can't come back from that. Not sure how we would do that. And then Nancy said, okay, so where are we going to start it? And, and then she came up with some ideas. I came up with 10. But what clinched it, I think we talked so much that first day that we had the whole book figured out by text messages. We wrote it in text.
Wow.
It's a good thing we don't have to pay for text messaging anymore. I would not be able to afford my phone bill.
But the cool thing is you can go backwards and look at the old message. So you don't.
We did that. We had to do that too, because we lost some stuff, and we'd look back at our text message and go, oh yeah, what about that? What about that? And Berta and I have been critique group together for, God, I don't know how many years. And so our writing
over a decade.
How what? What did
over
you say?
A decade for sure.
Yeah, there you go. And so we're very familiar with each other's styles and each other's habits, and it just worked out, that we were able to do this without killing each other. And I know that a lot of people who collaborate end up becoming instant enemies. And we're just really lucky that didn't happen with us. And, you know,
But we have a no knives rule when we write.
yeah, yeah, that's right.
If we have to get together, no knives. Leave it in the car.
Yep, yep, that's
Go through a
true.
metal detector.
That's right.
So in other words, if she shows up with the plastic wrap and the shovel and stuff like that, get worried.
Yeah, that's a bad sign.
No, let me tell you what, I am too lazy to dig a hole. So if I'm gonna kill her, I'm just gonna shoot her and let her lay there, and I'm gonna leave, or vice versa. Now she's not lazy. She would bury me under her bushes in the front yard.
And
She
let
would
my
probably go
dogs
out at
pee on
midnight
you.
and dig the hole. Yeah.
Yep, that's what I would do.
So Becky, before we get into premeditated territory, so what was the inspiration for you for this one and our lighthearted oncologists? And I'm not going to make any jokes about learning bedside manner.
Well, I worked in acute care for 10, 15 years. So, and then one of my dearest friends is an oncologist. And so we had worked on some pretty sad stories. And I wanted this one to come have a nice outcome. And so that's, it was a challenge to do that, but I think I pulled it off, but because it's more based on the romance. It's more based on forgiveness, and the arc of these two characters is actually forgiveness.
Okay. So Nicole, since this is diving into kind of your first real love and world and the second book you've gotten finished to start this series off, what spurred you onto the series, and especially getting into this third book, you know, kind of what really brought you to writing this story?
Well, so I originally, it was Mad Magic was supposed to be a standalone. And
Yeah, that never happens. Just
that
give up
never
on
happens. And the response from the first book was good, and but a lot of the readers, I was determined not to make it a love triangle. There are two fairy guys in it, but I was very intentional with not making it a love triangle. One is her best friend and the other one is her love interest. And all the readers, because guess which one it was? The broody Prince of Nightmares guy was the best friend, but he's the one that all the readers wanted more of. So he wound up, he was one of those side characters that wound up really surprising me as the story went on. And towards the end of it, I just sort of knew, like, okay, I need to tell Eldrick's full story. He's got a lot going on. There's plenty there to play with. His dad's a major jerk. His mom's a real piece of work, but with a name like Jezebel, what did you expect? And so I wanted to dig into their family history, their family drama there, and I really wanted to. The whole theme of the last two books is the found family, because the girl that is the central character, Josie, her entire family that she knows of has been killed off by these fairies for reasons that would be spoilers. But there's a few that have rallied around her and want to protect her. And she's not content with being a damsel. And so they're teaching her how to take care of herself. And in the process, then the whole found family thing sort of comes into play. And but it's not all for her. It's also for Eldrick, who has been extremely isolated because of his family's lot as, I mean, he's the son of the bogeyman, and even his father is king of the Unseelies, and so he's kind of a social pariah. And for him, it's every bit as significant for him to have this found family too. And then he finds out that there is some actual familial connection there, which is kind of I won't spoil any more than that, but I did not want the conventional, because there's a lot of the whole damsel to warrior transition type stories, and those are really fun. I just wanted to kind of take it a step further and show her growth, but also this like the depth of the relationships there, and then the fallout for when that feeling maybe isn't mutual, or when you actually lose someone in the that's important to you, or when somebody you thought was dead isn't dead, and the trauma associated in that. And when they're, the biggest question I wanted to ask the readers with this book, because I love doing that. I love leaving aspects of a story that asks the readers a question that's hard to answer. And for this one, it was, what is forgivable when it comes to a family member and what they do wrong? Because it's astounding what readers will forgive if a character is an attractive, hot guy, they'll forgive him of anything. It doesn't matter what he could do anything. But if it's a female character, there's a tendency to be a lot more reluctant to forgive the characters for their pasts, and especially missteps that happen during the story. And so I was pushing the boundaries of, okay, if he's attractive, how far can he go before what he's done is unforgivable? And so yeah, and I'm waiting for those reviews, like, here we go. But because I did it in Vicious Vows and they got so mad.
And as long as I keep coming back for it.
Oh yeah, my favorite is when the reviews are all in caps. Those are my favorite ones. Because they just went straight from the end of the book to Amazon and are like, angrily banging. Those are my favorite.
So, writers' books, what's the most favorite thing? It's not the writing, it's not the editing, it's the research and rabbit holes we get to go down. It's all the discovery, it's the things we get to learn along the way, the things we get to go look at, play with. So Becke, what were the things that you learned along the way in getting ready for telling this story? What are the things that kind of surprised you? As you were putting this together, what was the thing that you really kind of learned or drew out of this for yourself?
Probably for myself is my own view that there's no wrong answer on this. And I have had, for my entire career, I had a certain position on the story question. And what I learned I was forced to look on the other side of it, is there isn't a wrong answer. And, you can kind of understand, I can understand an aggressive treatment. I can understand one more day of hope. And it's not just about, I'm a science geek. So for me, I was statistics. So, what are the risk benefits? So that was always my approach. And, there's another side of it too. And I think that was the thing that surprised me. And then afterwards, I kind of looked at that and said, well, I can see both parts of it. And I tend to be pretty unilateral. So that was probably the key thing.
So what about you, Nicole? So coming back and looking, what did you learn going through, whether it was something research, whether it was something you learned about your writing craft? What kind of surprised you going through and working on this one?
It's a couple of things. First, it surprised me. I got a lot more emotionally invested in this story than usually I do. And I think it's because I found some reflections of things that had been going on with my family, in terms of what was happening to the characters. And that was kind of surprising that a lot of feelings were coming up during this. There's a couple of scenes of confrontation between siblings, and the characters got to say some things that I'm never going to get to say. And it was surprisingly therapeutic to get to vent some of that emotion. And then as I started doing research, I had to do a lot of research on Romania, which is not a place I'd ever been. My husband's been through that area with Air Force stuff. But I didn't realize there were so many Roman ruins there. And now I'm like, now I need to go there. Because I was looking for good ideas for battle sites. And I knew there were some ancient ruins there. I just didn't realize that the city of Histria is where the big battle takes place. And I didn't realize how significant that city has been throughout history. You just don't think, when you think Roman ruins, you don't think of, Romania. But yeah, now I need to go visit it because it looks really cool.
Here's the good news. That's a business expense.
Yeah, there you go. Tax deductible.
I'm kind of afraid to ask this question, but Nancy,
Yes.
what did you learn in this particular journey?
Well, at my age, there's not a lot you can learn. You sometimes feel like you know it all, but I guess with this book, it's more trust the story and the way the story wants to lead you, because once you get into it, the story will sort of begin to take a life of its own. And in spite of intense planning, sometimes you just have to give in to that spark that seems to set the whole story on fire for a while. And so both of us were amenable to that. And I would come up with an idea, or Berta would come up with an idea, and they'd say, well, yeah, we'll go with that. And as it turned out, that kind of freedom really gave us a chance to explore things we probably wouldn't have if we had just stuck with what we began with. We would have missed a lot of opportunity. And to be honest, we didn't intend this to be as humorous as it sort of turned out to be. It just sort of unfolded that way. The characters just sort of have a little wicked sense of humor that they want to inject into the story, and we just let that happen. And we're
Except our villains, who have no sense of humor whatsoever.
Yeah,
to their detriment.
Yes, to her detriment. So you take up the story from there, I guess.
Yeah, Berta, what'd you learn?
We have this very strong component in the story of what comprises family. It's like, is family the people you grow up with? Is family something about your past? And our heroine discovers something about her past that she would never have dreamed of. She was living a pretty pedestrian life, and then things go astray. And in a good way, eventually. But it's very frightening for about 200 pages. Well, maybe 230 pages before it settles down.
So now we're going to go with one of my favorite questions, because, nobody cares about the heroes. It's all about the antagonist. So Nicole, kind of who is your antagonist in the story? Because it already sounds like you're leading a little bit towards, is your protagonist the bad guy to start with?
She's not an antagonist, but she definitely darkens significantly and goes from this valorous, noble sort of hero figure to, yeah, I'll get my hands dirty if it's for the greater good. I don't care. There's a lot of emotional things that happen to her that sort of fracture her views on morality and good, and what she's willing to do to protect the people that she cares about, even if it means hurting other people that are also important to her. But the antagonist in this book is actually one of my favorites, Jezebel, who is, as the name implies, trifling. she's a master manipulator. She's a she fair type of fairy, but as with all of them, she has the way her true form has led her to be interpreted in different ways by different human cultures. But she actually, when she physically manifests, she looks a lot like a sphinx. She's very crafty, very clever. She loves riddles. She loves messing with people's minds. She but her motives are difficult to read for that point. She's very layered, and it takes them a while to work their way towards what is she really after, what's her real motive. And when you finally arrive at it, it's oddly sympathetic. And I think that's going to be a great another difficult question this book will ask, of because I love a good sympathetic villain. I really, the Loki type, those are the best ones where you almost want to join them. And Jezebel, at first you hate her, everybody hates her, and then the more you learn about her situation, the more you're like, I can kind of see where she's coming from, maybe, but I like taking that aspect and turning what a reader thinks they know on its head, because those are the kinds of stories I like that pretzel your brain a little bit. So but Jezebel's fun, and her husband, the bogeyman, is also fun too.
So Nancy, what about you guys? Berta, what about your antagonist? You said you're humorless villains here because they don't have a sense of humor.
She has all of the lovely redeeming qualities of Sauron. She's that kind of person.
Yeah, she's not warm and fuzzy by any means. She has come to a point in her life where she is so laser focused on getting rid of the protagonist that she would risk killing everybody in the world just to get to the protagonist. So she's been around for 300 years, and she's just getting more and more and more laser focused on finding this girl and getting rid of her. She can't do it. She ends up with a spell that's probably going to kill everybody within 100 miles, and even her and her cohorts, and at one point she's almost willing to do that just to get rid of this girl. So she's very hard-edged.
She's motivated. She's motivated.
Yes, she is very motivated. And we love I love a hero with redeeming qualities too. I love a bad guy that you kind of root for secretly, but this was not the book for that. And I think the second book is going to have one like that, but this one is. We had to have the monster, the total monster, and she is.
She fits the bill nicely.
So what about you, Becky?
I'm sitting there thinking, you guys totally confused me. I'm thinking, well, gee, how in the heck am I going to apply that to my characters?
Do you have an antagonist? Because sometimes books like that don't raise a situation more than a person.
I really don't think, I wouldn't say either one of them are the antagonist. I think she is this, my heroine is the stimulus to make him recognize his ability to forgive himself. I think she brings that out to him. But so to me, I guess maybe that's it. Maybe she's the teacher, if you will, that stimulates this man to finally say, oh my gosh, and it is about returning to his family, because this is the returning to the Murphy family that he is unable to forgive himself and go back. So to me, I guess in that way, she's the stimulus to getting back there to help him make that arc.
So,
But next time I'm gonna have a monster. I'm putting a monster in my next book. Actually, I made the heroine is a seductress, so she's kind of fun to work with that little gal because I have to redeem her.
So, kind of diving into the fun. What's the one thing that you want your reader to really come out of when they get this? With the fun of reading the story, with the fun of telling the story. So, Berta, I'm gonna hit you with the first one on this one.
I think the reader, I want them to want to know more and enjoy the ride, because it's a really fun story, but then want to know what comes next, because there are going to be other books and we want them to keep going.
We actually left questions unanswered, characters who are not really defined, and they're the kind of characters that you feel like you've got to know who these people are, what they are, and how they fall into the story, and the overarching arc for the series. And you just don't get that in the first book. And the last page of the first book asks a question that you're not going to get an answer to until the second book is done, or maybe even the third book.
It's
and the hero, everyday person, and I hope that the reader will see themselves in her and know that they're capable of greater things, really great things.
And I would like to say this, because this really ticks me off with a lot of books that are in series. If the book doesn't tell a complete story, that really hacks me off. So each one of these books will tell a beginning to end story that's a part of an overall story.
Yeah.
So you get a satisfying ending, and if you don't want to read book 2, okay. But there are a lot of questions raised here.
But I may know your phone number and I'll call you up and say, no threats.
That's right.
What about you, Becky? What do you want the readers to take out of this one?
I wanted my readers to take out a specific a thought about this, and that is there is hope, and to live your best life every day and embrace every day, because none of us are guaranteed tomorrow. So we really have to make the most of this and embrace the people that we love, say the things that we need to say, and that was probably my number one message in the book.
And Nicole?
There were two things that I wanted to end on with this, because this is the last one. The first one was that forgiveness is a journey, and that when it's something that has, like what happens and to a lot of the characters in this, when there's a deep hurt or something that's happened that or has been done to you that is within a family, that's a breach of trust or a breach of, when it's something that's a significant hurt, that forgiveness is not always immediate, and that forgiveness is a journey, and that trust, like rebuilding that trust. A lot of people, especially within families, they expect you to forgive them and for things to just immediately go back to the way they were before. But just because your family doesn't obligate you to that you're allowed to put boundaries in place, you're allowed to be angry, you're allowed to have feelings just like you would with in any other relationship, that you don't, being a family member and having somebody hurt you does not obligate you to, it doesn't obligate you to forgive them, and it doesn't obligate you to let that happen again. That you're allowed to protect yourself, you're allowed to choices that protect your mental well-being. And then again, the second thing was that with the notion of the found family, that that the people that you choose to have in your family, that it's just as important to be there for them and recognize their needs as it is for them to be, you know, being that for you, that it goes both ways. And so in any relationship, like, you can't just take, you have to give. And in a found family, you can't just be a taker. And that is something that was hugely significant in this story, because Josie realizes, the main character realizes, that she has been taking a lot from Eldrick, who is her friend, without giving much back. And that he is near a breaking point with that, as things with his mom, Jezebel, get really bad. And so realizing then that she needs to change that, coming to him, apologizing, and then actually following through to do things to be that person for him that he needs in his life. Sorry to end on a heavy note. Rim shot.
Ho,
So-
ho, ho.
So before we wrap up, just want to kind of throw this out there for everybody. Is there any one thing that we haven't talked about tonight that you want readers to know? The one thing that's going to suck them in, that means they've got to have this book on their to be read pile, and it better be in their holiday shopping. So Becky, how about you?
That you have to have it.
You
Like I
gotta
said,
have it.
I think in the holiday season, you know, this is the month of gratefulness, and I think we have to keep that in mind. So I think the story reminds people to be grateful of what you have and focus on that, and to avoid having focus on what you have and not of the fear of losing something. I think it's probably a good thing to remember.
So what about you, Nicole? What's the one thing that we haven't touched on that you think that the readers have got to know?
That this series is a lot of fun. There's a lot of heaviness in it, but there's her main love interest guy. He's a changeling who can shapeshift. And he is a blast, and he's the kind of guy I would want to be buddies with. And there's a lot of fey mischief in him doing things and changing his shapes and stuff just to screw with other people. And there's a lot of it. It's a fun ride all the way through. It's a series that you'll want to start book one, and it's gonna be one of those where you come out of it a few days later and you're like, what happened? And so I'm really excited that it's finished now, and all 3 books, so that the people can just binge through the whole thing now, because that's what I like to do. So it's been a blast. It's had me laughing at the keyboard a few times. Zep always makes me laugh. He's funny. But there's a lot of feelings in it, and not just all heavy, sad ones. He hijacks a trip to the moon.
What about you, Nancy?
Oh, I guess probably that we've done something in here that I haven't seen anywhere else. It's possible that it's out there, but we made a 90-degree turn with a character that when we began, we had no idea what was going to happen. And it's turned out to be really something that drives the plot for that character, and actually for the protagonist in a lot of ways. So it's going to be more about that in the second book, but it certainly surprised us when it happened. You know, we're going like, oh, that's interesting. So I think that, and I think that if you want something that's going to be fun and a little bit irreverent in places, and something that's not going to keep you awake at night, wondering if Freddy Krueger is going to come through your bedroom or something. I think that's what it is. I think it's a story that people of any age could love.
What about you, Berta?
True. And it has beekeepers and swords and dragon scales and what else? Secret rooms full of treasure. That's all kinds of great stuff.
Well, you can always.
Like D&D to Planet either, because some people they
That's a shame because that's a lot of fun.
Now I can
It is.
see, you're going to put the Hot Dragons label on the front. And that's going to be up there on the upper corner. Well, I want to thank
Hot
everybody.
Dragon.
Huh? Hot Dragon. Yeah, I'll tell you that.
Dragon.
Yeah, Hot Dragon. Well, yeah, I'll tell you that story offline.
I need to hear that.
Yes.
So,
Does it include Nicole's word?
no, it does not. Well,
Don't.
sort of.
Nicole,
But-
Nicole, you missed an opportunity to use your word. You had a perfect opportunity, and I'm going.
I'm gonna
Use your
upset
word.
these you got somebody can use it if they want. I guess it's too late now.
When we
I
go
have all
off,
these
we'll
parents
record it.
that I can't. There are like some
It's okay.
6-year-old kids that read my books. Not Mad Magic, but they all.
Say,
I will
I'll
get
tell you
some-
a story. I had the second book in our Fair Folk series. The character is put at the Renaissance Fair into a really smelly character costume and made to throw pickles. And she breaks something and she says a curse word. And my editor said, "Oh my God, put it in, use the F word." And I was thinking of all the 9-year-olds who had been writing us fan mail. And I said, I can't. And Michelle Roper, our co-author, she said, "No, we can't do that. No, we can't." So we said a curse word, and people would come up to us and say, "I can't believe you used this word in the book." And I said, "That word is not in the book. Go back." And they would stick in their own word.
That's,
Yeah.
I just used to, I get letters from these little kids. They're like, and so I don't, and their moms especially are like, "Oh, my child loves your books." And so I don't want to get hate mail from them.
No.
It hurts more when it's
Right.
parents that are like,
Well, so we can tell the story offline. We'll go ahead and wrap it up. But before we get out of here, we'll let everybody tell you where they can find you, social media, websites, all that kind of good stuff. And we're going to go in reverse order because I can. So, Becky, you're up first.
It seems like my name keeps coming up and up. You can get me at BeckeTurner.com. I spell my name with an E, I guess, just to mess everybody up, but it's BECKE Turner.com. And that's how you can find me.
Facebook, Twitter, the hive of scum and villainy that it is. Anywhere else?
I'm on Facebook, yes, but that's under Rebecca Turner's and my private account. No Twitter. I do have Twitter, but I'm never out there, so I don't like to tell people to go there.
So, Berta, how about you? Where can everybody find you?
And it's bertaplatas.com, and Twitter, I'm Berta Ryder, and on Facebook, I'm Berta Platas, and my personal account is public. So, I mean, my life is like an open book billboard. You can see it.
I'm
Nancy?
going to follow you.
Well, I'm building a website because I don't currently have one, but you can find me at DragonCon and writers at dragoncon.org, or my email is nancycknight@gmail.com if you want to write to me and tell me what a stupid job I did in this interview, or whatever you want to say to me. I'm pretty level-headed, and I'm probably not going to come framming on your door and say about that email you sent me. So I'm actually pretty easy to find that way.
But she will send
I'm
a
in a-
dragon. She will send a dragon.
Yeah, And I've been director of Writers Track at DragonCon for 23 years now. So, I'm pretty out there.
And
What
and I'm
about?
available on Amazon.
And what about you, Nicole?
Well, you can find me on Facebook. I'm Nicole Conway. On Twitter, I'm the Bad Cat Reads, but it's all D&D stuff. It's not usually book stuff. It's just me ranting to other DMs about Dungeons and Dragons. I'm on Instagram. I'm really active on Instagram, and now I'm on TikTok. I'm trying to do the TikTok. I'm a millennial, so it's a little hard. It's a little scary, but I'm trying. I'm being peer pressured into it. But you can find me as Nicole Conway or author Nicole Conway. But Instagram is my preferred. I just really like the pretty pictures. So all the pictures, none of the drama. But I don't think I'm cool enough for TikTok. I'm figuring that out. That I'm also
you're totally cool enough. You can do it.
I don't know. I'm also very rarely like camera ready for that.
You don't have to do that. Put up your battery cover, stand behind it, and read from it.
Okay.
We've had a chat going on all night trying to tell people about book talk. But before we go down another rabbit hole, I've been your host, Jim Nettles. You can find me at jamespnettles.com, authoressentials.net, authoressentialsworkshops.com, and of course, when they let me out of my cage here at ConTinual. Other than that, they don't let me out to play. We will see everybody again sometime soon. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye, ladies.
Bye.